Good evening to all of you participating in this short session, A Slice of the Word. For tonight, I have gone for a word, or actually two words, an expression, a theme that, in my opinion, is very much linked to the Divine Mercy Sunday that we celebrated yesterday. It was something that actually, when I was much younger, was giving me a bit of a trouble. What did it mean that Jesus died for us? And I was having great difficulties understanding the idea of the sacrifice. And another word that we're going to reflect is atonement, which is doing something or being something on behalf of someone else. And I think that this film that hopefully you're going to watch after this session is explaining in a very good and simple way what Jesus did, why he did it, and what does it look from God's perspective. Well, to start from the beginning, the need for the sacrifice, the need for atonement is coming from the existence of evil. Because we know that we participate in evil whether we want or not. The Bible gives us the description of where the evil is from. But in fact, we would want to simply wish God, can you get rid of the evil? And God quite hopefully would do it. But there's one problem. He would need to get rid of us because we participate in the evil. And in this film, it's quite clear that for God this is not an option because he loves us. He just doesn't want to do it. What is evil? What does it create? Well, the authors of the film that you're going to watch are presenting the effects of the evil in two ways. One way is a very moral way. Evil creates injustice, so the evil creates the debt that one person doing something wrong to the other owes to the other one. Like if you rob someone, you owe this money, this property to the other person. And the other way is the hurt and feeling that is being caused on the way. And the Jewish people were dealing with injustice in a very specific way. They were having this sort of sacrifices in which they were understanding that rather than the person being killed, some other creature can be sacrificed, and that's why they used animals. The idea of the sacrifice in that way is maybe strange to us these days. We've got great difficulty seeing the link. But for the Jewish people, it was quite obvious that the living creature or the herb can be sacrificed instead of a man. And they were having many penitential rituals. The idea of the sacrifice or the blood of the sacrifice purifying the temple, the place, the people was there as well, because for the Jewish people, understanding that the blood is the symbol of life was quite clear. So in that way, sacrificing animals for God, they were using their blood to sprinkle the temple, the places, in order to be protected. Now, along with the time, this idea obviously was changing into more spiritual idea, and from one prophet to another, we hear that there will be something who will bring true justice. But Prophet Isaiah gives us the best, the clearest picture of who this will be. Because in Prophet Isaiah, this prophet or Messiah or king is being called a servant, someone who is going to bring life, bring justice, but as a servant, not only as the ruler. And Jesus was referring to this idea in some places in the Bible. He was saying explicitly that he didn't come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many, as atonement for many. So there were many sacrifices throughout the Bible, like a classic example is the sacrifice of Abraham, where instead of his son, a ram uh, gave the life for him, like in exchange for him. We can remember that when Jesus was young, the birds were offered for him. Um, and Jesus simply uh, became a personified sacrifice. He gave his own life as a ransom for us. So we are not paying the debt for the sins, for the evil that we do. Jesus did it for us on our behalf. And this not idea, but this reality of standing for someone is crucial in this moment, because if we would only look from the perspective of personal responsibility, that we have to pay the debts, we wouldn't go far. While Jesus standing in for us, for all of us, for all the people of all the race, tongues, and ages, he did this sacrifice once for all, for good. Now, something that when you'll be watching the film and you need to be careful of is the end of this presentation, because what these two presenters say is that the sacrifice of Jesus and the ransom of Jesus, the atonement of Jesus is being carried forward in two basic rites, or they call it rituals. Well, I would say that probably because they are Protestant theologians, they do recognize only two of the sacraments that we have. We have 7 sacraments in the church, but they mention two: baptism and the Eucharist, and they quite rightly explain the baptism as the moment when we die for evil with Jesus, and we go back to new life through the prism of his resurrection. Because Jesus didn't only put his life for our sake, but he conquered death by rising again back to life. So we die for evil in baptism, and we raise to new life with him through his resurrection. And in the sacrament of Eucharist, they say, imitate the same sacrifice that he did. Well, in the Catholic Church, we've got much broader and much deeper and far more realistic understanding of the sacraments, because for us, they are not rituals. When we say, maybe I'm not feeling the difference in the English language that much, but when it comes to ritual, we focus on the action, on the performance, while we don't do rituals, we do rites. It means that this is the symbol which is defined in action and in words. That's why it's called a rite. Everyone needs to do it in the same way, but in the same time there is a reality of grace. We just don't do magic, we don't do tricks, we don't do ritual. It would lead us to ritualism. We are focused on the grace of God that is coming through these symbols. So this is not just Mass and just Eucharist. These are all other sacraments that we're having in the church: confirmation, penance, holy anointing, holy orders, matrimony. So we've got all these sacraments, but this aspect of Jesus being ransom for us or standing as atonement for us is explicitly showed in baptism and Holy Communion in the Eucharist. I would say that to me, this film, this presentation, is a very good way to help us to understand Jesus's encouragement to turn to Him and ask for mercy, because we don't have to suffer, we don't have to pay for the sins, for the debts that we do. He paid it for us. And because He did it, He doesn't want this sacrifice of His, if you like, to be wasted. Because then if someone doesn't turn to Him, almost means that this person is excluding himself or herself from the circle of grace. And this is the tragedy. This is like buying a ticket and not using it. In this situation, in which we are now, a lot of people would probably have bought trips, vacation, holiday. Most of them will be refunded, but some of them not. And this does seem like a waste, because we know that it's got a value and it's not being used. So how Jesus not be burning within Him with His love when He paid such a ransom for us, and we are not uniting ourselves with Him? So this message of sacrifice and atonement is in fact, maybe it sounds cruel, but this is amazingly positive message. We don't have to be punished for what we've done. It's almost like being convicted and not having gone to not having the duty to serve in the prison, or not paying the fee. In the same time, we need to understand that there is a room for rudeness, that, like, little children, knowing that nothing is going to be happening to them, out of rudeness they sort of do evil. But Jesus is inviting us to come and ask for this grace, because He was the sacrifice for us. He was the atonement for us on our behalf. And this is particularly important in this message. So it's very brief. It's only about 6 minutes. Please do watch it. The presenters do this presentation in a very colorful, very descriptive and simple way. But as I say, we need to be careful about the end of it, not to limit the atonement of Jesus just to these two sacraments, which they do. But we need to be aware that there is more than that. So I hope that you will enjoy and find useful watching this session. As I said earlier in the morning, tonight, like every other night in this quarantine time, the retreat, Divine Retreat group from Ramsgate, every night between 6 and 9, they're hosting the Rosary Adoration and Mass. Because we can't really do the praise and prayer evening tonight, I'm inviting everyone who would want to worship God in that way to simply participate in their prayer. All the best for you, and God bless you. Good night.